What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Lending Podcast. We are live today with Dale Vermillion, but before I bring him on, I have to just make a couple comments. This is actually going to be the end of season 1 of the Modern Lending Podcast. Tomorrow, if you go back a year, was the first podcast ever that I launched, which was on January 8th, which is wild. So we're today, the 7th, we're going to do the last one for season 1, and we're going to move into season 2. You'll hear more about that. It's going to be a blast, but man, we have so much to learn from 2020. So many things happened to us that just dramatically changed the space. And this is going to be a great conversation with Dale. Look, if you don't know who this guy is, he's a 34-year veteran. This guy has coached more than 1 million loan officers. You talk about somebody that has, experience, that can speak into what we're going through and what we're going to be going into. And there's nobody better than this guy. I mean, he's a published author. He's a professional speaker. He's been in the game. And when you're in the game, it gives you glorious perspective. And so without any more further ado, let's bring on Dale and kick off the last podcast of my season 1. All right, baby, we're live. Dale, good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I loved our last podcast, and as if you guys didn't know, we did that in August. I had to go look it up, and I feel like we did it like 2 years ago with how much time has warped in view of COVID and everything else. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Please drop a comment, say hi. We'd love to connect with you guys today. It's much more fun when this is interactive. Yeah, Ashley, thank you. Dale is a wealth of knowledge. We're going to rock and roll. And so, Dale, let's kick it off with this question. We're now in 2021. And clearly the insanity of 2020 hasn't left. There's
clearly.
It's like, oh my God, everyone, I was hoping, hey, maybe we'll get a little bit of normalcy back. And clearly, no, they're like, no way, 2021, we're still going to be in this craziness. So as we look back, and obviously January is always a time of goal setting and reflection. And so let's talk about a little bit what you think we learned in 2020 as an industry. And maybe let's start unpacking that and what we should be learning or stepping into in 2021.
Yeah. Well, Alec, first off, I'm honored to be back on with you. Thanks for having me back. And the fact that it's your last one, that really makes me feel great. So
yeah, you're going to close out season 1, man. This is fun.
I hope to end it with a bang. So look, let's talk about 2021 for a minute. There's so many loan officers that I'm training every single month, thousands per month. And I'm hearing this from everybody. I'm concerned about what 2021 is going to bring with the political changes in the landscape, with the social landscape, with the economy, with, all of these concerns. Look, I want to put all your minds at rest. Quit worrying about that stuff. You don't control any of it. Look, no matter what happens in this economy and these interest rates, we are going to be fine. In fact, we're going to be beyond fine. We're going to be fantastic. Yeah. I love it when you said glorious perspective. That was one of my favorite phrases I've ever heard. Okay. I've actually been this is my 38th year in the business. You get almost 4 decades, you get some perspective.
By the way, before you dive on, I just have to, perspective is the saving grace of a loan officer or a manager's life, being able to pull back a little bit and to go, wait a minute, really matters right now. I mean, you're right. It can save stress, heartache. Perspective matters.
Yeah, look, last year was the best of times and the worst of times. It was the tale of two cities. We had some of the most difficult things we've dealt with in turn times and challenges with files and challenges with closings. But we all made the most money we've ever made before, or you should have. And if you didn't, you're going to do it this year because we're going to help you to get there. So here's the bottom line. 2021 is going to be another record year. Every forecast from every expert out there says that we're going to have the highest purchase market in history. That's a projection from Mike Frantantoni over at the MBA. Yep. Rates are going to stay low. They may go up a little bit. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Home ownership will stay the American dream. The mortgage business will continue to be the bright spot of the economy. Rates will continue to be the primary way that people save money and build financial wealth. So having said that, let's talk about a couple of things that I think are critical to learn from 2020 as we carry into 2021, because it's going to be another record year, but there's going to be a shift. There's going to be a shift in the marketplace, and you got to be prepared for that. So here's the first thing. We've got to do a much better job in 2021 than we did in 2020 of setting expectations with our customers and our realtor partners and all of our other referral partners that, you know what, we're still dealing with COVID. We're still dealing with challenges. We're still dealing with high volume. It hasn't gone away. And you know what? Here's the good news. You're going to get access to record low interest rates, record affordability to buy a home, and record opportunity to save more money on a refinance than ever in your lifetime. But you're just going to have to wait a little longer to get it. And that's okay. And if you set that expectation from the start, Alec, you know as well as I do, if I have two borrowers, one of them I tell them I'm going to close in 30 and I close in 32, and I tell the other one 45 and close in 41, the 41-day closing is way happier. Because I set right expectations. We have got to learn that when we put too tight of expectations on a file, it puts pressure on ops, it puts pressure on us, it puts pressure on the customer. And I've had this question, Alec, this is the most common question I got when I talked about this in 2020. I had many loan officers say, well, Dale, the realtors. Okay, I know the realtors want to close in 30 days because they get paid a commission. They want it now. But if you sat down with your realtor and you had this conversation, here's the conversation you'd have. Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, let me ask you a question. I can take a 30-day contract, and we're probably going to fight through that thing the entire time. We may or may not make it. We'll probably ask for 3 extensions. We'll probably close in 36 days anyway, and everybody's going to be madder than a wet hen at the end of the process. We'll never get repeat or referral business out of those people again. Or we can do a 45-day contract, actually close it in 36 days. And you know what's going to happen now? Everybody's going to be delighted by what we did. We will exceed expectations.
So let's unpack this, because this is an interesting conversation. And you can, Dale, are you back? Am I back?
You're back.
That was amazing. So let me unpack this a little bit, because this is where it gets into. This is a hard conversation, because there's lots of fear in setting expectations. I set expectations, and then some other loan officers saying I close in 20 days and spitting that in the realtor's ear. It takes guts and courage to set expectations.
Yep.
And so how do you coach into that with somebody who is saying, yeah, I mean, I should say that, but I'm too afraid that the realtor or that the business is going to flow away from me if I don't, tell them I'll close in 20 days.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to my basic premise of the mortgage business, Alec. I've lived by these 3 principles my entire career. I call it the triangle for success. It's 3 simple things: value, relationship, differentiation. Those are your 3 critical pillars. Now, here's the thing. All right, so let's say somebody's chirping in your ear they can close in 20 days. First off, I'm not sure that's true, because there's a lot that say it that don't do it. Let me just be clear about it. And you can ask your realtor, have you had them tell you that in the past and not make it? And they're going, well, yeah, actually I have. Okay, there's your answer. But here's the deal. What value are you creating for that realtor beyond the turn time? What relationship have you established that they can trust you're going to handle their customer better than anybody else? And what differentiation do you offer from your competition at the end of the day that would offset 5 days or 10 days difference? Because at the end of the day, the borrower wants the best loan from the best lender, from the best loan officer out there. And if you can prove that, 10 days don't matter.
Yeah. So you hit it on the head right there. If you're not providing value outside of a turn time, or if you're diminishing the value you provide, or just don't understand it, you're not gonna be able to have that confidence to have that conversation. So let me ask you this one though, Dale. This is a fun one. Let's give your advice on resetting expectations. So let's say, like, this happened to a lot of professionals this year. I set expectations, but then the world kept moving. More loans kept piling in. And at the time of setting the expectation, maybe we set the right one, but it's changed now. Now, this is a really hard conversation, because you got to go back to people and reset expectations. But walk through how you would coach into that, how you do that, because people need to understand this. This also takes guts and courage to go do the right thing.
So here's a quote that you can put in the bank on this exact topic. And the quote is this: education is the key to expectation. That's all it is. You just got to be forthright and sit down with your partner and say, look, when we set that thing in motion, everything told us we could get it done in that time.
That's right.
Look at the world around us. I mean, all you got to do is talk to them like a human being.
Yeah.
Don't work in a vendor-lender mentality. Work in a partner mentality. And say to your partner, look, I am doing everything in my power. My team is to close this thing in 35 days or 30 days or whatever we committed to. But you're seeing the marketplace out there just like I am. Volume's higher than ever. Every single, the one thing that I have taught loan officers to educate their customers and even their realtors on is ask them a question. Hey, here's a question for you. How many people do you think touch your file before it closes? Mm-hmm. And they'll go, I don't know, 3 or 4. It's closer to 20.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, you got inspectors, appraisers, title companies, escrow companies, closing agents. You got all these different things. And every one of them is dealing with COVID, and every one of them is dealing with high volume. There's so many things out of our control. You know what? We're going to recalibrate. We're going to do our best, and we're going to get it back to where it needs to be so everybody's happy. It's a process of education to establish expectation.
Dude, I love that. And I think that is one of the key learnings that we have to just root in our souls as we enter 2021, because that type of courage, expectation setting, re-expectation setting is gonna separate the pros, from the minor leagues. But on that note, what else did we need to learn or relearn from 2020 as we're going into 2021?
Well, here's a big one, and it ties back to number one, but it's a whole different thing, and it's this: we were many times our own worst enemy last year. And let me explain by that, okay? So number one concern I heard from loan officers was, oh my gosh, processing times, closing times, taking forever. Okay, yep. Gotcha. You're right. That did happen. Yeah. But why did it happen? Well, I'll tell you the reason why it happened in most cases. My experience has been that the majority of operational issues are actually sales issues. It comes down to the quality of the application going in from the start. So here's the deal. Okay, we just came out of the highest volume market in history. We're still in that. We're still at a point where demand is so high, we can't even get to the borrowers that want to work with us. All right, now having said that, you have an opportunity to be selective here. Now, I want to be very careful with that word. That's not a redlining word. That's not we're not making loans to people. It's selective in this. Let's take a normal marketplace, Alec. Okay, it's now, instead of 2020, it's 2019 when the market was normal. All right, I get a deal from a referral, and it's got a lot of hair on it. I mean, it's got some problems. I am going to take that file and I'm going to try to make it work because I have capacity to be able to. In this marketplace, I'm not doing that. I am saying to my partner, look, here's the deal. These kind of loans, even if it closes, which it probably won't, are going to take 4 times as long. That means I could do 4 loans in the same time I can do this one for you. I want to be a good partner. So here's what I recommend. Let me first educate you on how to qualify your buyers better so that you get better quality. And then let me work with this customer, and I'm going to give them some advice on what they could do to clean up their act, quote unquote, get their credit score up, get their income right. And we're going to bring them back in a month or 2 months when they're really well qualified, because they'll zip right through the system. You see, the reason a lot of our capacity issues were there was because we kept piling stuff in that shouldn't have been there. And it created a problem for everything else.
It's this issue is not gone away. You're 1,000% right. We're in the middle of this issue. And so, and I'm seeing it across our company. And so I know loan officers everywhere, this is what we do. They're still shoveling in, loans at the all-you-can-eat buffet that they shouldn't be. I mean, this idea of being a selective loan officer, a selective professional, where you go and look at that loan and go, no, it's hard. Loan officers, they don't do that. They go, yes. And they go, why would you take that loan on? It's a disaster. And they go, no, I can't help myself. I mean, I feel like they can't help themselves. So how do you coach through that? Because it's massively hard for loan officers to say no to a deal that they know is a train wreck that they shouldn't take. I mean, this goes back to also saying no to certain referral partners that we know we shouldn't be working with, that just aren't good fits, that suck our soul dry. And yet we're just like, please, we're gluttons for pain. Give me more. So how do you coach into that? It's a lesson people have to learn in 2021.
Well, I've learned that history is the best teacher on the planet. And what I find when loan officers do that is, what I'll say to them is, look, you're just suffering from insecurity or lack of confidence, one of the two. You're either insecure that you're not going to get more deals, or you have a lack of confidence that you can't get other deals done. And here's the fact of the matter. You can. You're in the marketplace. One deal doesn't make or break you in any marketplace that you're in. And here's the thing you got to look at. Let's look backwards for a minute, okay? Let's think about all the deals that you've had in the past that look like this. What percentage of those went well? And they go, well, almost none of them. Okay. So here's what I used to say to my loan officers. I want to remind you of the two things that every top producer and low producer have in common.
Okay. 24
hours in a day. Now I'm going to remind you of the two things they don't have in common. How they use that 24 hours. That's what makes all the difference. Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to waste 20 hours on a file that has this much chance of success when you could take that same 20 hours to originate, call realtors, prospect, get customers, which is going to be more fruitful. It's a simple question of balancing your time. Yeah. And I've never had a loan officer not say to me, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. And they become successful.
Yeah, it's one of those core learnings that we have to carry into 2021. And it's going to make people, if you're a loan officer and you heard that advice right now, it's going to make you happier. And it's going to make you more successful. And that sounds weird, saying no to a deal, no to real certain relationships and realtor partners, but it's going to make you happier and more successful at the same time. So Dale, thank you for that. What else?
And ask yourself this question. Okay. Yeah. When you look at those files, the question is, all right, how much pain, how much negativity, how much frustration is this going to create for me? Okay, because every time I get frustrated, mad, and upset, I become negative. And when I'm negative, I'm not selling anything. So if my job is sales, which means I got to be a positive thinker, I got to make sure that I'm working all the time with the right attitude, but I'm creating these files that are dragging me down. Is that really how I want to build my business? You got to think about your business as the CEO of your business. And ask yourself the question, where's my time best used? And your time is not best used on those files that you literally are not going to get done. Let somebody else do that file. Go find the good one. And I know there's some people out there going to hear this and go, oh, that's terrible advice. You know, I'm in this to help people. We are all in this to help people. But you can only help people that have helped themselves. You got to understand that about the business. Look, I know as loan officers, we've never met a loan we didn't like.
That's right. No, bring it in. Bring it in.
I get that. But you know what? Here's the deal. If you're putting somebody in and they're not really ready to be in process yet, you are doing them a much better service when you say to them, you know what? I would rather work on improving your credit score, improving your income, stabilizing your qualifications in the next 3 months. Have you work on that and submit your file when I know you're going to get approved. Then put it in now and hope and pray it's going to go well, because now they might be 3 months in with all that work and frustration only to end up with the wrong answer at the end. And now you've created an enemy. Don't do that. You want to be able to close the loans. And the key to that is quality, not quantity.
So by the way, Scott, I love your comment. I think it's officially time for a book of Dale's sayings and lessons. And when I saw that, I'm envisioning, remember the little, it had a quote for every day, and you'd rip off the little calendar thing and have a new quote the next day. Dale, just release that as your next, like, industry. It just, I need my Dale quote for today. I love it. So good.
I love Scott. Hello, Scott Payne. I love that, man. What a stud. I love that guy.
All right. So we tackled a couple big rocks. You know, we tackled expectation setting, being selective. What other key learning or things should we be unlearning or focusing on for 2021?
Well, here's the big one. It's not about just speed and rate. That is the two biggest mistakes that I see out there. We've already talked about the speed thing. Okay. We've talked about turn times. You're going to have to reset expectations, but you know what? It ain't about rate either. The one thing I've been screaming from the rooftops for 27 years as a speaker is rate don't matter. It's not about rate at the end of the day. Look, there's always a faster and there's always a cheaper. Always. Yeah. You will never be the fastest. You will never be the lowest rate provider. So quit trying to be that if you're trying to be that. I hear it all the time from loaners. Well, if my rate was just 1/8 of a point less. Well, if your rate was 1/8 of a point less, what would happen was your competitor would just drop another 1/8 off theirs to beat you. That's what would happen. You're not going to win based on the 1/8 of a point. You win on the value you create for that borrower in, not just the rate. That's one small component. But yes. What kind of term did you provide them to match up to their retirement goals? What kind of loan did you give them that matches up to their lifestyle? What kind of cash did you provide to them as part of that transaction? I'll tell you what. This world today where we're doing all these rate and term refis, I wouldn't do a single rate and term refi. I would be talking to everybody about cash out today, because here's the deal. We're sitting in the highest value property value market we've ever seen in U.S. history.
Right.
More equity than we've ever known. And we got people all over this country that are worried about losing their job because of coronavirus and got zero money in reserves. Why are we doing a rate and term refi? Why are we not cashing out some money to put it into a reserve for them to protect their family? So if something happens, they got 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then helping them build wealth, build retirement funds, do things that make a difference in their life. Not just, hey, let me lower your rate and lower your payment. Anybody can do that. That doesn't differentiate you.
Well, now you made an interesting comment I want to go back to real quick, because it's going to be, I love triggering. I love things that trigger people. And this was a trigger comment, and I wrote it down as we were talking. You said that a lot of the fulfillment problems are because of the loan officer and loan submission quality. And most people would say, no, I did perfect loans, blah, blah. But I want you to unpack what you really are meaning when you say that, because that's another massive lesson that we kind of just hit and jumped to the next thing. But man, it ties it because I love going back to it, because it ties into personal responsibility, which is like my thing. It's like, oh my God, yes. So what did you mean when you said that? How can loan officers be better at that? Let's unpack.
So there's two sides of quality. And Alec, you just asked a great question. So the first side we talked about, that's the quality of the borrower. Okay, that's the first one. Make sure that they're qualified before you jump into the marriage. Okay, It's just that simple, or it's going to end in divorce, and you don't want to do that. So that's number one. Now, the other side is the quality of the file you create. So here's what I mean by that. I mean, really two things: complete information and application, and complete documentation. Those are the two things that drive quality. Okay. So I hear this a lot from loan officers, because I train so many of them. Hey, I'm taking a complete app. Okay. So you're filling in all the boxes, but I want to ask you a question. Do you know your borrowers? Do you have a real relationship with them when you do that? Make sure that you're not just filling in boxes, but you're literally getting to know them. Get more depth than just the questions in the 1003. Go beyond, so you've got all of the answers for your underwriters and for your processors, so that you're having minimal touches on the file. The whole idea of quality and the whole idea of the mortgage business is to create a factory assembly line mentality where everybody touches it once. It just moves forward. It doesn't come back up the pipe. So if you really take a complete application and get all the information, and then here's the most important thing: get all their docs. Why would I submit something in to processing, not have their documentation? Because I know most people don't really know what they make. What they make and what they actually make don't match, because they don't understand how we calculate incomes. So what happens is, I've now put it in the system. Somebody works on it for 7 hours only to get a pay stub or a W-2 3 days later that kills the whole deal.
Yeah.
Let's kill the deal or make the deal on the front end by getting that borrower to give us their information. This does two things. It shows commitment. They're your customer, and it certifies that they're qualified to even go into the process. You're not even putting things in unless you're sure they should be there.
Yeah, it's hard because there's you start to get a lot of the "it's not my job." You say things like that, and then I hear in the back of my head loan officers go, "Well, that's not my job. My job was to secure the deal. I got the deal in. That's the processor's job, or that's somebody else's job." And by the way, maintaining file quality is a massive issue. Documents age. So to not know that or not be aware of that, and all of a sudden now you're finally ready to go, but your file's not complete anymore, is another disaster I see happening. And loan officers, again, advocating responsibility. That's not my job. And whenever you take your hand off the wheel, so to speak, and you say, well, that's not my job, just be prepared to be a victim. Because I don't know, it kills you.
Well, I will tell you, after training 1 million loan officers, Alec, that for my entire career, what I've said to every loan officer is, it is your job. And let me tell you why. Who gets the commission?
That's right.
Processor doesn't.
It's hard to argue that one.
They're getting a salary. You got somebody working on your file for $4,000 a month, and you want to make $25,000 a month, and you're not taking responsibility for that. Look, without docs, I don't even know you're committed. You telling me you love the loan doesn't tell me a thing as a consumer. What tells me is action. Actions speak louder than words. So if you're committed, you're going to give me your documentation, because I want to make sure that I'm not putting something in that even I think I'm going to get a commission on. That's never going to happen. I'm setting myself up for disappointment when I do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to certify that information by getting that documentation. In today's world, it's so easy to do. with all the technologies we got out there today, all the point of sale systems, the fact that people can snapshot their their pay stub and get it to you in seconds flat. It's super easy. It's not like the old days where you had to actually get it from them physically. You can do it today virtually. The beauty is you can get it. And look, let me say one more thing. When you get their docs, remind them, this might take 60 days. So your pay stub, I don't need this pay stub. I need this pay stub and every one from this point forward. Plant that seed at the point of application that when they get their next pay stub, they're emailing it to you. Next pay stub, they're emailing it to you. So you're constantly refreshing your documentation.
That goes back to expectation settings. I mean, if you don't tell them you're going to need more stuff later, and then you come back and say, hey, I need this stuff, they're like, well, why? And you didn't set, you're automatically behind.
Yep.
All right, well, let's talk about, I want to go back to perspective a little bit. I want to talk about distractions. So whether you were a 100% purchase-focused LO or not, you probably got hit in the face with refinances in 2020.
Yep.
And even if you are a great purchase-centric loan officer, if you're worth your damn, you stayed in contact with your old customers. So they called you and they want, so, but we all know refinances aren't sustainable long-term business. They kind of come in waves. They're this weird thing. And we're also seeing potentially a very low rate environment in 2021.
Yep.
So how do we maintain perspective and focus? How do we not turn into transactional refinance professionals and just abdicate the purchase side of the market? What do we do to get through this?
So, everything in life that leads to success is built on a plan. Nobody accidentally gets successful. Nobody does it without a plan or purpose. I've met so many successful people, hundreds of thousands in my career. And every time I sit down with them, I see the one same quality. They don't do things by accident.
Yes.
Everything's intentional. They have a plan in everything they do. So look, this is January of 2021. It's the month of, resolutions and rebuilding and recalibrating what you want to do. And we've got to look at our business and say, okay, we know there's going to be a sustainable refinance market for a while yet. We want to make hay while the sun's shining. We don't want to the opportunities, but never at the sake of losing the partnerships and relationships we worked so many years to build. So you've got to plan out what percentage of your day and your week and your month is going to be dedicated to your partners and what percentage is going to be dedicated to your customers. It's the hunting and farming mindset. You hunt to go get those realtor partnerships and those builder partnerships and those CPA partnerships. You farm what they send you to get it closed. And you've got to plan out what your farming and your hunting time is. And you've got to build that out. Now, look, the thing that I saw in 2020, the people that were the most successful, made the most money that I coached. What I coached them on is I said, look, you maintain your purchase side, get LPs for the refinance side.
Yes.
And here's all you got to do. When those leads come in, you take 5 minutes to introduce yourself to that customer because you're the pro, you're the expert. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting the experienced person. And then you're going to say, and I'm going to give you my colleague who I totally trust with you. They're going to feel like they're in your hands the entire time. They know they got contact you. It's no time out of your day but 5 minutes, but you're getting a deal. You're killing the refi side because those are easy transactions and you're maintaining the purchase side, which is more relationship minded.
It's crazy to me that, you just outlined it beautifully, but this is also how you bring in the next generation of mortgage talent.
That's right.
You go find some young, hungry, doesn't know mortgage, they get licensed and they can help you farm your database. They can help you with client relationships and they can learn the business and they can be underneath your wing of mentorship. I love it so much. I think that's genius. It reminds me of a story and I want to share this because I think it'll be helpful. When I was 23 and impressionable, I had a great mentor who said, look, no matter how busy you get, no matter how many loans you get, you can never, there's one activity per week you have to do every time, no matter what, which is on Thursdays and Fridays, you need to go to broker preview and see agents. And on Saturdays and Sundays, you need to go see 5 to 6 open houses of the agents you're prospecting.
Right.
No matter how busy you are, never schedule anything during that time.
Right.
Don't do customer meetings. This is what's going to drive your future success. And so to exactly what you just said, Dale, you have to prioritize the things religiously, no matter what. These are non-negotiables. I service this customers, my partnerships, my relationships. I don't release these to the wild, and yet I build around it to have the success I want. I could not agree more. And you can see people who are doing it and who are not doing it.
Yep.
You can see it. because they disappear. They're gone. I'm like, where'd they go? Oh, they must be just slamming refis, and they're losing the rest of their business and their relationships.
Yep. Look, you gotta plan your work and work your plan. I mean, that's one of the oldest things in the books. You've got to make sure that you've got a prioritized mindset in everything you do. And your priorities have to be on the things that are most important. And your relationships are the most important thing. If you don't tend to those, you lose those. Don't ever forget that. So you might be successful in a short-term period, just churning and burning on refis. But long-term, when this thing clears up, and it always does, I've been almost 4 decades doing this, markets change. The minute it changes, you're hung out to dry because you've got to now go back to those people you haven't been in contact with for a year. They know the reason why, because you were taking refis, and they're like, buddy, hit the bricks. I've already got your replacement 3 times deep. You don't want to make that mistake. You got to make sure that you're tending to your business.
All right. So we've got expectation setting. We've got courage in conversations, being an actual bold leader, not being a vendor with your, Scott, lead management, baby. No doubt. So what else has 2020 taught us that we need to be prepared for in 2021 in your mind?
Well, I'm going to say this. Quit being so mad. I see so many mad people today. It's like I've had more conversations with loan officers who are upset, and I say, "Can I ask you a question? Did you make more money last year than ever?" They go, "Yeah." I go, "Why are you so upset?" Well, but I know, it was hard. It was hard on everybody.
And I coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, but look, you're worried about the deals you didn't close, and you're forgetting about all the ones you did close. You see, you got to understand when a high volume market happens, you have to embrace the market. And what that means is you got to understand that with the high volume market comes a lot of frustration, because the good news is the low rates were what allowed you to get all of the flurry of business that made you so much money. Those same low rates created all of the intense volume that created all of your aggravation. You can't have one without the other. That's just the way it works.
Yep.
So what I would say to everybody out there is just stop being mad. Just, you know what? Put it behind you and relish in the blessings of all the loans you've closed, all the lives you've changed, all the money you've made, and just let all the rest of that stuff go. Don't let your algorithm become what I call an angry rhythm. An algorithm is how we deal with problems. That's what a definition of an algorithm is. It's the process we apply to problem solve. That's an algorithm. Well, I see a lot of anger rhythms. We get problems, we get mad. No, problem, solution. That's what you got to pivot to every single time. Figure out, okay, it happened. It's history. Can't change it. How do I fix it? If I can't fix it, end it and move on. That's it. Well, if you let it affect you, it's going to kill your business.
This is perspective. This is kind of where we almost started the entire podcast today. You know, that perspective to understand the blessings that you, like you said, that you've gotten this year, in contrast to the pain and the frustration that we've experienced. And what advice do you have for somebody? How do we maintain that perspective? Because we can get it in glimpses, and then I feel like we get pulled back into the anger rhythm. And we get pulled back because a customer texts us, or something, you know, an underwriter didn't do what we needed them to do, or whatever it ends up being, and we get sucked back. How do we maintain it?
So let me share one of my favorite stories, Alec. I hope you'll enjoy this, and your audience will. It's a story about these parents who have 2 twin boys, 10 years old. One's positive, one's negative, and they can't seem to fix it. So they take them to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist says, okay, I can fix this. So they take the son who's got the negative attitude, and they put him in a room that has 150 gifts in it for a 10-year-old boy. Parents go look through the glass, and the kid opens every gift, and all he does is complain and whine and find everything wrong with him. It doesn't change a thing. They walk into the other room where the son's at, who's got the positive attitude, and he's running around in horse poop 2 feet deep. And he's thrown in the air, and he's laughing, and he's smiling. And the mom puts her head in and goes, honey, do you realize you're running in horse poop? He says, yes, I do, Mom. He says, why are you so happy then? He says, because where there's poop, there's a pony.
Wow. There's a pony in there somewhere.
You got to find the pony. Look, what you got to do, let me give you the simplest advice on the planet for dealing with frustration, all right? You get that email, you get that phone call, and it just, you feel it rising.
Yep.
I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to walk away from that computer, walk away from that phone. Do not respond to that. Walk away. Take a minute. Find a spot. Okay. I love coffee. You saw me drinking coffee. I'm going to grab a great cup of coffee. I'm going to find my spot. Okay. Whatever that is, looking out the window, with my earpods in, listening to a great song. And for 1 minute, what I'm going to do is close my eyes and count my blessings. I'm going to remind myself I'm breathing. I'm living. I'm successful. I got a family. I got kids. I got grandkids. I got a home. I got 3 meals a day. You know that in the world today, 90% of people are starving to some level.
Yeah.
And we are so blessed. If I just take that 1 minute to remind myself of the blessings, it's amazing how it just snaps me out of it just like that. And I'm right back in the game again. That's what you got to do.
Dale, I want to compliment that with another piece of the conversation. I found, and I'm needing to be better at this, which is why it's so obviously in front of my mind. But typically when we fall into that lack of perspective, it's because we're really focused here on ourselves. And when we step out and we go be in service to those in need, I feel like we get that perspective. We get off ourselves. We look around. And to your point, I mean, you don't have to look far. Just look at the local businesses in our cities that are struggling to survive COVID. I'm in California. We've been shut down, opened up, shut down again. I see restaurants that invested in all these outdoor dining and then they shut down again. I think if we can step out and be in service, especially passing the blessings on we've received being in the mortgage industry this year, I think we can gain a little more of that perspective that could help us with our, anger rhythm. I'm digging that. I'm into that one.
This is part of the reason I love you so much, Alec, and I'm so honored to be on your show all the time. Look, I got your t-shirt here. Be a humble hero.
So good.
That's exactly, this is our tagline for our not-for-profit, for our charity that we've had since 2006. We've helped homeless and orphans and kids who live in garbage dumps all over the world and in the US here for years. We housed 250 families in the last 3 years alone who were single moms who literally were living in cars. My wife literally goes to Walmart parking lots at 10 o'clock at night and finds people in cars, and we fund their housing so that they can live. Look, you start serving other people, you realize how bad it is out there, and you realize how great you've actually got it. It changes all the perspective in the world.
Well, Dale, let's do this. I mean, we've hit some major topics for 2021. As we kind of wind down our conversation, what do you really want people to start the year with? What things can they be focused on? If you looked at I know you're coaching loan officers, so you're looking at annual plans, you're looking at what they're doing. What are you telling them to be focused on this year? What are you really sending them out with? What's the message?
First off, in order to build a plan, you got to know your conversion rates. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I find is that loan officers don't understand how their conversion works. So they don't understand from a referral they get, what percentage of those go into an application and then an approval and then a funded loan. You can never build a plan unless you have those numbers to backward calculate into it. Totally. So that's number one. Make sure you've got your numbers down. Make sure you build a plan and always increase your goals each year. You've got more in your tank than you think you do. That's all there is to it. And
this year proved it. This year flexed everybody up and realized they're stronger than they thought.
We have these glass ceilings we create that shouldn't be there. Human beings have astonished me my whole life. And I just want to say that if there's a message that if you didn't like anything I said today, hopefully you did, but you want to catch a message to take home, here's the one. You are awesome. God made you for greatness, not for mediocrity. Don't be mediocre. Be amazing. But to do that, you got to build a plan in the process. And then here's the key. Pull your team into this. The biggest thing I saw, Alec, in 2020 was just a lot of infighting between sales and processing and operations. You know what? It's time to lay down the gauntlet. It's time to make friends with your internal team. It is time to work together to accomplish these things, to establish a strong baseline that you can work with. That might mean you got to forgive some people for things that have happened. And that's okay, because as I've always said, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and wishing the other person would die. Okay? It just doesn't work. You got to let it go. And you got to say, we're going to work as a team and we're going to work together well. And you got to make those things right. And if you do that, you're going to have an incredible 2021.
By the way, I want to add a story to this, and I think you'll like it. So I was talking to our chairman elite, our loan officers, one of the best, does a ton of loans every year. And they were in this I'm having frustrations with my processor, right? Like everyone feels this. Everyone's like, oh yeah, my processor is tough. And I said, well, okay, what do you do every day? And like 8 a.m. we have our status meetings where we sync up with me and my PAs and my team. And we talk about what we're doing today. Like, what's the priority list? And I go, well, why isn't your processor there in that meeting? He's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I mean, you're setting priority for the month, for the day. You're talking about the problem files. You're kind of just kicking off the day. Why don't you invite your processor into that meeting?
Yep.
And they go, well, I don't know if they'll, I don't know, they don't work for me. I don't know if they'll come. I go, what? Invite your processor. So I check in a week later and they go, my processors come to everyone. Our relationship's radically transforming.
Yep.
They're like in the game when they're adding contribution to the call. They're stepping in saying, I'll handle that. And to your point, like teamwork's happening. It's not an us, them. It's a we.
Yep.
Even in our own companies, somehow we make us thems. And it's like, what are we doing? We're pulling on the same side of the rope. So, man, I love that so much. I couldn't agree more with that comment.
One of the things that I teach, Alec, is called redwood teamwork. And the reason I call it redwood teamwork is because if you've ever been to the redwood forest in the Northwest Pacific part of the U.S., you'll find out that the redwoods are the oldest trees in the U.S., dating over 2,000 years old. They top out at almost 400 feet. That's a 40-story tree, and they're 60 to 80 feet in circumference. Now, here's the cool thing about redwoods. They grow in a place where trees shouldn't grow. It's not conducive to tree growth. So how in the world did they become the biggest, tallest, most beautiful trees in the country? Here's the answer. It's in the roots. Redwood trees' roots don't grow in the ground. They grow on top of the ground. And what they do is they connect with each other. And when they connect with each other, when the storms from the Pacific Ocean comes, they hang on to each other for dear life. They're able to sustain each other. And here's the coolest part of that story. And this is true. Redwood trees get sick like human beings. And you know what happens when they get sick? The nutrients from the healthy tree connected to it actually pours their nutrients in and heals it. That's teamwork. That's the kind of teamwork we want to build. If you build that, you're going to crush it. I guarantee it.
Dude, Dale, I love that. That's a great message to end the podcast with, my man. Do you have any other words of wisdom you want to leave to some loan officers that are out there listening right now?
Well, let me close with a quick story that I've been sharing that I think will be meaningful about this whole relationship and all of this, because I think this is really key to the success of 2021. It's called the fence. Okay, so just think of the fence and you'll think of the story. So here's the story of the fence. Father has this 20-year-old son who's got a bad anger issue, bad issues with people. He's just acting out all the time. So he decides he's going to try to help him. So he says, son, here's what I want you to do. When you get upset, I want you to go in the garage, grab a hammer and nail, go to the back fence, beat that nail into death until you feel better. And just keep doing that until it doesn't happen anymore. Kid goes, okay. For about 2 weeks, he does this. At the end of 2 weeks, he realizes, I'm not going out there anymore very much. So he says to his dad, I think I've overcome the anger issues. He goes, good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go out every day you don't have an anger issue. I want you to pull a nail back out. He goes, okay. He does that for about 2.5 weeks. He gets all done. He goes, hey, Dad, did you see the fence? He goes, I did. You pulled the last nail out. He goes, yep. He goes, now I got a question for you, son. Did you see the fence? He goes, well, of course. He goes, no. Why don't you go look again? Go look at that fence and tell me what you see. Kid comes back. He says, hey, Dad, I saw a fence that has 26 holes in it.
Yep.
With a bunch of bang marks on it and rust coming out of those holes that wasn't there before I lost my temper. He said, that's right, son. That's what I wanted you to see. You see, the problem is when we act out like that, we leave an impression on others. We do damage that cannot be erased. What I want you to do from now on is don't bang any more nails in the fence, but live your life in a way that you can do it. Now, by the way, that actual story was my dad and me. I had a temper issue when I was 20. My dad fixed it with nails and a hammer on a fence. I was never the same guy afterwards. It's really important we understand that you don't want to put nails in the fence. What you want to do is you want to mend the fence and work with people in a great way.
Dale, thank you for being part of the podcast today, man. I cannot wait for your next little 365 quotes from Dale that I can look at every day. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you for everything you're doing in the industry. Thank you for everything you're doing in the world. I love the charity work you're doing. Thanks for sharing about your wife and what you're doing in that world. I think it's important for people to have that. And, thanks for sharing your perspective today. I think it's going to help a lot of people as we charge into 2021.
Well, Alec, I love you, man. And I'm so glad we became friends. And I appreciate what you do. Thanks for that. You're making a massive impact in this industry. Thanks for doing it. Keep it up. You are just a great guy. And it's just an honor to be here.
Thank you,
my friend.
Hey, for everybody watching, appreciate you guys. If you find value, if you love thanks for being part of the conversation live. And those of you watching in the future, have a wonderful day and kick butt in 2020. We'll see you guys the next time on the Modern Lending Podcast.